A very good evening and welcome to the World Now at 4. I am Udwak Daniel. Apologies for starting behind schedule. First, let's talk the headlines. And on the headlines, Nigeria seeks financial support for Gulf of Guinea Commission. Still on the headlines, Malian opposition leader receives draft constitution. Also on the headlines, new interim prime minister vows freedoms, rights. And on sports, Zimbabwe coach Dave Houghton targets Super 12s. And now the news in detail. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari has appealed to member states of the Gulf of Guinea Commission, that is the GGC, to remit their outstanding annual assessed contributions to the Secretariat. President Buhari said that the continued non-payment by the majority has greatly affected the ability of the Commission to fulfill the mandate for which it was established in 2001. The president made the appeal at a virtual meeting of the heads of state and government of the member of state of the Commission on Thursday, convened to review progress and efforts to deal with maritime challenges in the region. He said the inability of the member states to pay their assessments was threatening the continued existence of the Commission, and also called for urgent collective action against the dangers and threats affecting maritime security in the Gulf of Guinea region. He told the summit that Nigeria considered the effective functioning of the GGC as strategic to the collective security interest in the Gulf region, particularly in addressing issues with piracy, the proliferation of small arms and light weapons, protection of maritime resources, as well as irregular migration to the region. Bringing you more stories, stakeholders in the environmental sector have been urged to work together to achieve government's commitments in its emission reduction target. Nigeria's Vice President, Professor Yemi Osibajo, stated this at the pre-COP27 National Stakeholders Consultative Forum and Climate Youth Negotiators Capacity Building Workshop held in Abuja, the nation's capital. He said that government was fully committed to its emissions reductions target, while calling on participants at the event to participate actively and come up with resolutions that would direct Nigeria's course as the country prepares for COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. Osibajo stated that the federal government is committed to emissions reductions, and this is something that the entire country and all of us must work together to achieve in this workshop. He goes on to saying, I'm sure would help in channeling and progressing Nigeria's intention at the next climate change meetings, and would like that everyone participates and contributes effectively. Nigeria's Minister of Environment, Mohammed Abdullahi, said that the meeting was to examine efforts and to ensure that Nigeria participates actively at the COP27 coming up in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. He noted that there was need for enhanced national priorities through increased institutional coordination and stakeholder collaboration as the country prepares for COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. And now let's bring you more stories and tell you that Nigeria's police, Zamfara State Command, have seized a truckload of hard drugs, foodstuff, and other consumables meant for delivery to bandits in Dumgubal Magami axis in Zamfara State. 8 suspected bandits, including a female informant, were arrested while bandits attacked were repelled in the 3 local government areas, that is LGAs. 4 rifles, 250 rounds of live ammunition, and 9 rustled cattle were also recovered. The police public relation officer, that is the PPRO Zamfara State Command, Mohammed Shehu, said the suspects were arrested and through discreet investigation.
Exhibit recovered hard drugs that include beta injection, tramadol tabs, chloroquine injection, Exol tabs, cartons of beer, foodstuff, and 2 sacks of wrappers. Arrest of gun runner, recovery of 250 rounds of AK-47 live ammunition. The suspect confessed to have been sent by a notorious bandit called Ladan.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Let's get on to news from other parts of Africa, this time starting with Mali, and having you know the Mali's opposition leader Colonel Assimi Goïta has received a draft of a new constitution, a key part of the military's bid to retain power in the crisis-hit country until 2024. According to Newsman, it was reported that a preliminary draft constitution has not been made public and have arrived 2 months after it was originally due, but the commission chair set up to write it said the deadline had been extended. It was gathered that the Malian authorities, dominated by the military, which seized power in August 2020, cited the drafting of a new fundamental law as one of the reforms needed for the refoundation of the state. They announced the commission in June after extending military rule until 2024 and have said the constitution will be put to referendum in March 2023. Assimi Goïta, head of Mali's ruling junta, said the submission of the draft of the new constitution is only one step in the process, as soon as the sovereign people will be called to a referendum to decide on the document. And now let's take a quick move away from that story and have you know that thousands of students in the northern Ethiopian region of Amhara have walked out of the national school leaving exams to determine their entry to universities, which 12,000 high school students refused to sit the exams. A statement by the Education Ministry has not provided any reason for their refusal, but it comes as authorities introduce new measures to curb what they called a rampant epidemic of cheating. According to Newsman, the government this year has moved students more than 500,000 in the first round alone to different university campuses around the country. They were to be confined in the campuses for the exam period and prohibited from accessing mobile phones and the internet. A second round of exams for hundreds of thousands of students was due to start on Thursday, being today. It was also gathered that amid the new measures, a student was killed and some security forces were injured when violence erupted after students tried to stage a walkout in Amhara. It was reported that another student had died earlier when a bridge collapsed in a university campus in the country's south. The exams are not taking place in the war-torn region of Tigray, where federal government has not provided education for 2 years. And now let's take a quick walk into other parts of the world and have you know, in the U.S., a top U.S. military officer on Wednesday said Ukraine has asked its Western partners to provide a complete air defense system to protect it against Russian planes and missiles. Newsman observed that the request comes in light of Moscow's barrage of long-range strikes launched on major Ukrainian cities on Monday, which killed 19 people. General Mark Milley, chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, spoke alongside U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin at the NATO headquarters in Brussels following a meeting of the Ukraine Contact Group.
What Ukraine is asking for and what we think can be provided is an integrated air missile defense system. So that doesn't control all the airspace over Ukraine, but they're designed to control priority targets that Ukraine needs to protect. And what you're looking at really is short-range, low altitude.
Good afternoon, everyone. We've made excellent progress at our 6th meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group. And we were joined by my good friend, Oleksiy Reznikov, Ukraine's Minister of Defense, and by Major General Moskalyov, Ukraine's Joint Forces.
And away from that story, let's get to Chad and have you know that former Chadian opposition figure Saleh Kebzabo says that the respect of all freedoms and human rights in all their forms will be part of the program after his appointment by Chadian ruler Mohamed Idris Deby as Prime Minister to lead a government of the National Union. Deby named Saleh Kebzabo, 75, a former journalist who ran 4 times for the presidency against the iron-fisted father, Idris Deby Itno, to steer the country back to civilian government. The 38-year-old 5-star general took over after the elder Deby, in power for 3 decades, was killed during an operation against rebels in April 2021. But he has since angered many at home and embarrassed backers abroad by pushing to stay in power beyond an initially promised deadline and contest promised elections. Speaking to journalists on Wednesday, Kebzabo promised to accompany the young Itno in a great endeavor, the next 2 years of political transition. Kebzabo, a fierce opponent in the last years of the elder Deby's rule, had been swift to recognize his son as leader after his death. 2 leaders from his UNDR party took part in the first transition government named by the junta. Deby's junta had originally declared it would restore civilian rule after 18 months in power and he had at first promised not to take part in the elections that would follow. But as the 18-month deadline neared, a nationwide forum staged by Debbie resets the clock. Last weekend, it approved a new 24-month time frame for holding elections, named Debbie transitional president for the interim, and declared he could be a candidate at the polls. Moving away. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Away from that short break, this time it is the business desk on The World Now at 4. Let's talk some business. World Health Organization, that is the WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, said on Wednesday a clinical trial of vaccines to combat the Sudan strain of Ebola could start within weeks as an outbreak of the disease in Uganda reached the capital. The East African country declared an outbreak of Ebola on September 20 and said infections were being caused by the Sudan strain. As of October 12, Uganda's health ministry had confirmed a total of 54 Ebola cases and 19 deaths. There have been worries the spread of infection in Uganda could be difficult to control because currently there is no vaccine for the Sudan strain. In a virtual address to a meeting of African regional health officials in Kampala, Tedros said several vaccines were currently being developed that could deal with the Sudan strain. 2 of those vaccines could be put in clinical trial in Uganda in the coming weeks, pending regulatory and other approvals from the Ugandan government, he said. Bringing you more stories, masked and helmeted Chinese and Nigerian workers hoist giant steel pipes over mounds of earth. Farther away, smoke billows from the blow torches. Camouflage in the millet fields, heavily armed soldiers are on the lookout. In Gaia, in southwestern Niger, near Benin, the largest oil pipeline in Africa is taking shape. Nearly 2,000 kilometers long, of which is in Niger, the pipeline is to link the oil wells of the Agadam field in the Far East, the scene of deadly jihadist incursions, to the Beninese port of Seme, from where Nigerian crude will be evacuated for the first time. With a modest production of 20,000 barrels per day, Niger, one of the poorest states in the world, became an oil producer in 2011. The black gold extracted from the China National Petroleum Corporation, that is the CNPC, is so far transported by pipelines to Zinder, south-central Niger, where it is refined. Initially, Niger had planned to evacuate its crude through the Cameroonian port of Kribi via neighboring Chad before opting for the Benin corridor. Launched in 2019, the project was supposed to be completed in 2022, but the COVID-19 pandemic has slowed it down. Mafio Isaka, the Deputy General Manager of the Western African Oil Pipeline Company, that is the WAPCO WAPCO, the project owner, told reporters. WAPCO, a subsidiary of CNPC, is now working hard. More than 600 kilometers of pipes have already been laid. 51.5% completion rate, and Niger could sell its crude on the international market in October or November 2023, he hopes. More than 700 soldiers are deployed to ensure permanent security of the work, even if a large part of the area it crosses is so far spared from jihadist violence, a security source, on condition of anonymity, declared. And now let's take a boss walk away from this and bring to you Sports Story, right here on The World Now at 4 on Hills TV. Stay with us.
evening and welcome to Sport News on World Now at 4. I am Memo Cynthia Asoya. The World 100-meter hurdles champion and record holder Tobi Amuson is delighted to have been nominated for the Women's World Athlete of the Year 2022 award. The 25-year-old is among the 10 women athletes released Wednesday morning by World Athletics as nominees for the award. Tobi has had a fantastic 2022, breaking the 100-meter hurdles world record on her way to winning gold at the World Athletics Championship in Oregon in a time of 12.12 seconds. She backed up that performance by striking gold again at the 2022 Commonwealth Games in Birmingham before retaining her Diamond League trophy in Zurich in a new meet record of 12.29 seconds. Reports show that the World Athletic Council, that is the WAC, vote will count for 50% of the result, while the World Athletics family, which is WAF, votes and the public votes will each count for 25% of the final result. Voting for the World Athletics of this year closes at midnight on Monday, October the 31st. Zimbabwe's cricketers have been urged to seize their chance at the T20 World Cup, with their coach saying his team has every chance of upsetting some of the tournament's more fancied side. Appearing at the first global tournament in 6 years, the Africans face Ireland, the West Indies and Scotland in their first round group in Australia. According to reports, only the top two will progress to the Super 12 stage of the competition, and Zimbabwe head into their opening on Monday ranked above both European side in Group B. After spending 42 hours traveling to Australia, Zimbabwe lost the warm-up match to Sri Lanka by 33 runs on Tuesday and faced Namibia on Thursday before their opening World Cup tie against Ireland on Monday, 8 GMT time. 4, back to Udwak Daniel for the rest of the news. I am Memo Cynthia Asoya.
Cynthia Sawyer, thank you for that one on sports. Appreciate it. Now, let us have you know that this is where we call it a close for the World Now at 4. But first, a quick look at our top stories. We told you Nigeria seeks financial support for Gulf of Guinea Commission. We also told you Malian opposition leader receives draft constitution. We brought to the fore the fact that new interim prime minister vows freedom rides. And on sports, Zimbabwe coach Dave Harton targets Super 12s. Remember to visit us on Facebook, Instagram, and our YouTube channel at Hills TV. I am Udwak Daniel. Thank you for watching.